the guidance counseling unit that we're presenting. We have persons from the core curriculum unit, special education unit, and all the various units within the Ministry of Education. But we are ready, and we want you to be ready too, parents, as we get ready for the PEP examinations, curriculum-based tests and performing tasks. As we get ready for all that, we want you to be ready. So we're engaging you this evening, and at the end of the evening, we hope that you will be empowered. What we want to do is to sensitize parents to the structure of the PEP performance task and the curriculum-based test. That's our objective. And so at the end of the day, you'll be so aware and so ready to take on the challenge to ensure that your children are ready and they understand. You're going to be partners with our teachers within our school system. So welcome, everybody. Welcome. It's good to have you on wherever you are. If you're joining us live on the various media, then welcome, welcome, welcome. So we're going into our session, and we do nothing unless we invite and invoke the presence of the Lord with us. And therefore, I'm going to be asking Dr. Thompson just to do the honors of our inspiration at this time. Dr. Thompson, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. The pleasure is mine to be here this afternoon to ensure that the presence of the Lord is among us. So we know, parents and colleagues, that the human beings are always referred to like a tree, and it's the scripture says should be like a tree planted by the rivers. And so I want you to think of yourself as a tree, and the branch, the root, what part of the tree you are. It doesn't matter what part, as long as all of us bears one part of that tree. Is it that you're the fruit? Is it that you're the root or the trunk? But together, one tree. And so this afternoon, Lord, we want to thank you, Lord, for your goodness. We want to thank you, God, for your mercies. We want to thank you, God, that you are God, and without you, God, we are nothing. We ask, oh God, that you be with us this afternoon. Open our faculties, oh God, that we can share and gather information, oh God, that will help us, oh God, to move on. And as parents, Lord, we want to ask, oh God, a special blessing upon the parents so that they'll be able to guide their children, not just through PEP, not just through exams, but through the teaching and learning arenas. And so, Lord, bless them, Lord. Keep them, Lord. Guide them, Lord. And I ask, oh God, for a special favor. And for the presenters, Lord, we ask, oh God, that you be their guide this afternoon, Lord. Help them, oh God, we pray. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson, for invoking the presence of the Lord with us. Surely we're feeling that presence right now, and he's going to enlighten our darkness. All our parents who are online right now. Oh, by the way, just want to let you know that we're now live streaming on YouTube. You can view the live stream now, or you can go later. You can tell persons about it on the JTC, that's Jamaica Teaching Council YouTube page. And just click and you can get there. All right, so with that out of the way, we are going into our greetings, and I'm so happy to introduce at this time Ms. Nadine Sims, ACO, the Media Service Unit, to proffer her greetings at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Delroy Williams, our Community Relations Education Officer, Region 3, Mr. Stuart Jacob, representing the National Parents Teachers Association of Jamaica, Mrs. Sharila Powell from the Halfway Tree Primary School, colleagues from the Guidance and Counseling, Curriculum, Special Education, Student Assessment Units, CREOs, EOs, and other colleagues from the Ministry of Education and Youth, and most importantly, our parents and caregivers, good afternoon. First, may I extend thanks and appreciation to Dr. Francine Taylor Campbell and team for hosting this parent sensitization session with a particular focus on curriculum-based tests and performance tasks. It's an honor to be here to bring greetings on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Youth. I'm sure you will agree with me that parental engagement equals student success. The ministry supports parental engagement as it can be a significant factor in promoting student success. As you know, when parents are engaged and involved in their child's education, it can make a world of difference in their academic and personal growth. As you continue to support your children through the PEP journey, be assured that your contribution, no matter how small, will be of great value in ensuring success. I'm sure many of you have seen the positive impact of parental engagement in your own children's lives. Children who are supported and loved by their families are more likely to feel confident and secure in their abilities. They are more motivated to do well in school and are more willing to take risks and try new things. I have seen examples of children who have thrived thanks to their parents' support. For instance, I know children who struggled in school until their parents started working closely with their teachers. I also know students who have pursued their passions and developed important life skills because of their parents' encouragement and support. But the impact of parental engagement goes beyond just individual children. When parents are engaged in their child's education, it can have a positive impact on the school and wider community as a whole. It can help to create a sense of collaboration and shared responsibility, where everyone is working together to create the best possible learning environment for our children. Of course, I know that parental engagement isn't always easy. We all have busy lives and competing demands for our attention and time. But I believe that we can all make a difference by finding ways to be involved in our children's education in whatever way we can. As partners, we can work together to make the experience a positive one for our children and for the greater good of our nation. Let's continue to work together to promote parental engagement and create a brighter future for our children. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Sims, for that. Greetings. Yes, parental engagement is equal to students' success. That's what we believe, and that's why we're engaging our parents this afternoon into evening, and just want to let you know also that you can spread the word right now. Spread the word in your groups, your parent groups. Tell them to join. Send them the link, and let them join, or on Zoom or on the YouTube channel. That's a JTC YouTube channel right now, so that they can all participate. Later on, we're going to be having the question and answer session, and just understand that we are doing two sections. Section 1, we'll look at language arts, social studies, and special needs, or section 2, we'll look at mathematics, science, and look at the administration of the examinations, and then we'll have some question and answers later on. But welcome everybody again. Welcome to all 96 persons online right now, and those on the various social media. We are going right now to ask Mrs. Bailey Folks from the Guidance Counseling Unit to do the pep talk at this time. Mrs. Bailey Folks, welcome. Is Ms. Folks here?
she was. Let me check.
I am here.
Okay,
Thank
yes.
you so
All
much
right.
for having me.
Okay.
You had us quiet. You were quiet for a while.
Okay, are you hearing me now?
We're hearing you loud and clear.
Very good. Thank you so much for extending the invitation to me. So to our parents and colleagues who are on, the task is mine to engage you in a brief pep talk. And so I want to take the time out to share from a psychosocial perspective how parents can provide support to your children who are preparing for the different PEP examinations, okay? And so parents, it's very important for us to understand how important managing your anxiety is for your own children, because we really would not want for you to be transferring that same level of anxiety you have regarding these PEP examinations to your own children. All right. So this PEP talk will be focusing on managing anxiety so you can provide better support to your children. So the main objective, parents, is basically to provide this psychosocial approach to assisting you in improving your capacity to help your children to cope with exams. It's very important for us to understand, parents, that exams are here and your children cannot get away from them, or children can't get away from them. They will have to do exams at primary school, when they reach to high school, sixth form, universities, and even when they are even applying for jobs. If they are shortlisted, what persons are doing now, what human resource management persons are doing now, is that they're giving individuals case studies where they have to review a case, find the responses, deliver that to the persons on the panel before being engaged in the interview process. So we want to cement it in the minds of our children that exams are here, they take numerous forms, so that they can understand that they can't get away from it. And in having that understanding, their anxiety towards them may decrease. All right, parents? So when we talk about anxiety, we're basically saying it's an emotion that causes your children, and not only children, adults too, to feel worried, to feel nervous or unease about something that they're uncertain about. Now, I'm so happy that the person from the Ministry of Education, they have called this parent sensitization session today to engage us in the structure of the curriculum-based test as well as the performance exam. So parents, you can understand how these exams are structured so you can better help your children to study and prepare. All right, so anxiety may be decreased. All right, so what does anxiety look like? I want to encourage us parents to be aware of the physical distress that are associated with anxiety. It's symptoms before and even during the course of the examination. For some of us, we have upset stomachs, or our palms become very sweaty. We can't hold the pen, we can't hold the pencil. You know, we start having a headache out of nowhere. We start feeling like we want to faint. We start getting hot or cold. You know, some of us start having chest pain, feeling of nausea, feeling sick and just trembling. You know, these are some of the physical symptoms, distressing symptoms that are associated with anxiety. All right. Some of us, before we even go to bed, we have a challenge sleeping, knowing that the exam is the next day. You know, before getting up or on the day of the exam, we don't want to get out of bed because we dread this thing, you know. Some of us start biting our nails, we start fidgeting, we start having negative self-talk, you know. So that is how anxiety displays itself in the physical form. Now, it also takes a toll on us where our emotions are concerned. And so parents, we want to be able to equip you with this knowledge so you can help your children to not be so anxious. All right. So some of our students, they express emotional distress. Some of them want to cry. Some of them laugh too much. I remember I was giving blood for something I was signing up for, and I couldn't stop laughing I couldn't stop laughing. I'm afraid of needles. I didn't even look while they injected me. But during the whole procedure, until they took that needle out, I was just grinning for no reason. I was anxious, parents. You know, some persons cry, some persons feel angry, some persons feel helpless, you know. But the challenge comes into parents where it's the same. I mean, I so much it is evident in how they write their scripts over a few phrases.
Seem to be having some technical issues on Mrs. Folk's
Some of
line.
them may believe that if they're nonsense, you know, and students can only do well if they're placed. Are you hearing me?
We're back. You're back with us. You went off a while ago. We're hearing you now.
Are you hearing me now?
We're hearing you now.
Very good. So some of the popular beliefs parents that our children may have is that if they are placed at a particular high school, it makes them dunce, or it means that they're dunce. We want to rubbish that. All right. And if they are not placed at certain schools, they can't do well. No, 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 no. Our children can do well wherever they are placed. And it's very important, parents, for you to believe in your children and set realistic expectations of them. So parents, I beg of you, I beseech you, please do not threaten your children. Do not nag them all the time. Do not bribe them when it comes down to exams. Oh, if you pass to go to the school, I will give you this or I'll give you that. Please don't do that, parents. You know, it takes a toll on your children, on our children. It could cause them to feel very anxious, so much so that they make unnecessary mistakes. I remember while I was at university, I was so anxious about a particular course. On the morning, I was on campus. On the morning, I had diarrhea because that course was so heavy. I was very anxious and I was wondering whether or not I was going to do well. Yes. So fear can cause your child to develop physiological reactions such as constipation or diarrhea. In my case, it was diarrhea, you know, and for some, brain freeze, they can't think. Everything is just blank. So please, parents, all of these have a negative impact on our children. All right. If they do not do well, they will feel like they're worthless. And some persons may want to commit suicide because they have not been placed at the school that you have been pressuring them to work towards. Some of them even become more rebellious, you know, and some of them may be deliberate in trying to fail in an effort to punish you, parents. So these are some of the actions that I'm proposing that we engage our children in. Spend quality time with them. Make this a day-to-day activity. Demonstrate your love and affection towards them daily. You know, take interest in them as a child or individuals, not as statistic. All right, be patient with them, listen to them, let them express their emotions, motivate and encourage them, feed them well so that they can function well. Let them get adequate rest, you know. Smile rather than frown. Encourage them more rather than criticize and compare them with other children. Okay? Ensure that they're hydrated, ensure they get good night rest, provide support during timetabling of the exam so they can prepare adequately, and allow them to relax, parents. You know, allow them to relax. And I can't overemphasize the importance of this conversation with persons from MOEY today regarding the structure of these two exams, because parents, once you're so armed, you'll be able to help your children to understand the purpose of exams on a whole and how they will help them to progress academically, because they will have to matriculate. as they continue their studies. Another thing, parents, ensure that you set realistic expectations. So if you know your child or children, they're not as brilliant as others, please do not set unrealistic expectations for them. You know, encourage them to do their best. Allow them to express their anxieties, verbal.
I think we're having some technical difficulties again, but I'm sure she'll come back in.
You know, parents, let us manage. So relaxing.
I think we have lost her totally now. Mr. Williams?
I think we have lost her. I think we have lost her.
Right, you can just continue.
I was so enjoying that presentation. It kind of brought me back to some of my days doing exams, and some of those things used to happen to me, Dr. Taylor Campbell. Yes, and really, really empowering as parents. But while we wait, I just want to gauge how parents are feeling this evening, even as you go through that session. How are you feeling as you get ready for these examinations, the PEP examination? How are you feeling in just seeing your children preparing for these exams? Just type in the chat. Let me see in the chat. How are you feeling right now? One word. Let's chat with me for a little while. All right. So let me see. Just type in the chat. Let me see others. Yeah, Richard Gibbs says he's stressed. Yes, I see again. There are several persons. Galaxy Note saying stress. We're seeing nervous, worried, nervous, confident, says Fire Tablet. Overwhelmed, says Nicole Clark. Take about 10 more. Let's go down. Let's go down. Type in the chat. Overwhelmed. Nikisha says feeling good. She's ready. Excited, confident, curious. Let's break the ice so a little. A few more. Good, excited. We're seeing Lacey saying good. Levis says a good, nervous but excited. Confident, says Karen Reed. Arlene is saying worried, and I'm sure we'll await Miss Bailey Folks coming back on, because we really wanted to alleviate those.
I think
worries.
she's back in. She's back in, so she
Okay,
can.
we want to alleviate all those worries. My child is confident. One says annoyed. Anthony Grizzle says annoyed. Anthony, you're going to tell us about why this annoyance. Confident, worried. We're just gauging while you dropped a while ago, Mrs. Bailey, folks, how our parents are feeling. Charlene, you have it right, trusting God. So I'm going to turn back over to you for you to complete your presentation. But I was just gauging while you were out, just to break the monotony somewhat and to hear from our parents. Go ahead, Mrs. Bailey, folks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. I was actually at the end of the presentation. I don't know what exactly you guys missed. But okay, parents, in a nutshell, I want to encourage us to make the best use of this session so you can understand better the structure of these examinations. Because worry comes into play where you really do not understand or you're uncertain as to what is expected. So if you have an understanding as to what your child will be up against, if you have the understanding and you share it with them that they can't get away from examinations, it's natural, it's a way to progress academically, you will begin to start helping your child to understand and feel calm, that it's a part of life. I have to do this. As I get older. So let me just settle and do my best. But my encouragement to you is not to be worried. Persons here will share with you the structure of how these exams are set up. And I know you can trust the judgment of the teachers of your children, that they are sharing the information, they're working with them so that they can do their best. For those who are confident, perhaps you continue to work with your children. Overall, parents continue to work with them. Ensure that they have a study technique that works for them, whether it is to read over their notes, whether it is to practice quizzes, whether it is for you to quiz them, whether it is to underline and make their own notes. There are so many ways that your child can study. Let them find something that works for them. Let them do their best and encourage them the best way you can, that they are your child, and wherever they're placed, they have your support, they will do well. They should only assert themselves and do the best they can. That will alleviate some of the anxiety. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much too, Mrs. Bailey Folks. Such empowering presentation, and I'm sure alleviating some of the worry. What I find is that sometimes the parents are even more worried than our children. Our children are more prepared, and our parents become so worried. But listen, man, you don't have to be worried. Once they're prepared and you assist them, as you got those tips from Mrs. Bailey Folks. Thank you so much, our guidance counseling unit. Thank you so much, Mrs. Bailey Folks. We're going into section 1 right now, and we are going to be talking language arts. And we have, from the core curriculum unit, we have Dr. McLean Francis, and she is going to take us through this presentation. Dr. McLean Francis, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And can everybody see my screen?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
are seeing all the question marks.
Oh, okay. All right. You should not be seeing question marks at this point. So let me go back to the top. And so I hope you're seeing everything. So welcome to our extra special guests, parents, very, very important stakeholders, and also to my colleagues from the Ministry of Education and any other organization represented here today. I just want to warmly welcome you. And in this segment, we'll be looking at the PEP 6, the performance task. I'm just looking at my start time, sorry, which is 5:40, so I can observe my time well. Okay, thank you. So we are looking at the performance task and the curriculum-based test, and just to give you some quick tips and guidelines. Now, the first question, parents, and I know children may ask too, why is there a performance task? And while you ask yourselves that question and maybe write something in the chat, you will see here that it is an integrated activity that seeks to find out the language skills that students have learned and to check to see to what extent they are able to apply these key language skills based on questions that put these skills in real life context for the students. So this is why the performance task is such a lovely examination, because we're putting things in context. And just to look at some of the key language arts skills that your students we will be assessing them on. I won't say test, but to assess them on. And these are just some of them. Reading and understanding ideas from different sources, extracting the ideas from different sources in order to respond to a question or based on a particular scenario, combining or synthesizing the ideas that they have extracted in a seamless, meaningful way, demonstrating the ability to compose and organize sentences and paragraphs, to organize, right, as I said, to organize these sentences and paragraphs appropriately, applying the grammatical rules that they have learned, whether it's subject and verb agreement, tense, pronoun agreement, using appropriate words, vocabulary or diction, whatever you call it, and using the appropriate format for the writing. So if they're asked to write a letter, can they format the letter? So in addition to the content, can they use an appropriate format? If it is an essay they are asked to write, can they structure it the right way? So the students would not be writing a letter if they're just asked to give a little essay or composition, and they are not just putting down their ideas without the letter format if they're asked to write a letter. So it's everything that they have learned that, we are looking at those key things that they have learned to see, have they really mastered these skills? So one of the main things we want them to do in the exam is to unpack that prompt or that question or that scenario that they have been given. And we'll be looking at it very quickly afterwards. Reading different sources and gathering evidence, because we are setting the base. Because when they go to high school, when they go on to university, when they are researching, they will not be using one source. They'll be gathering information from different sources. So we are setting the base at the primary level. How do they organize the evidence that they have retrieved or taken from these sources? How do they connect the ideas meaningfully to answer a question? And of course, as they prepare themselves, they look at we want them to explore what we call mentor text, which is looking at letters in textbooks, looking at a real letter that mommy has written, looking at labels, looking at things in print in the environment, and to see what these look like. What does a real article look like? And they can get this from the newspaper, magazines, past papers, textbooks, etc. And how do they plan their writing? So these are some big things that are part and parcel of the writing process. Now, parents, we want you, although some of you are teachers, you may not be an educator, but it is very useful for you to inform yourself where the curriculum is concerned, because both the performance task and the curriculum-based test both of those are taken or based in the curriculum. So there is a website, you can take a screenshot of it, JAM Learning Resources, where you can see learning kits. Some of those were used during COVID, but they are still relevant regarding some of the skills that your students should learn. And they can see mentor text there as well, things that they can use to model their writing and other types of resources. So those are two websites that you can go to. I want you to just have a quick look at what the grade 6 curriculum guide looks like. This is the cover. So when you go on the PEP website that I showed you earlier, and you look for the grade level where it says NSC, and you select the grade level, and you select 4 to 6, scroll down to grade 6, you will see this guide. It has language arts and all the areas, social studies, mathematics, but you can just locate the language arts segment in it. And one of the things I want you to focus on as you go to the guide, I don't want you to go through the entire curriculum guide. I want you to look at what we call the scope and sequence. So if you're looking right here, this is a scope and sequence that deals with writing. And I'm not going through all of it, but I just want to draw your attention to some aspects of it. So you notice that if you look At objective 1, I see the I is missing, my apology. Identify and discuss the importance of key phrases in writing prompts. And that is one of the examination techniques. When students get a prompt or a question, they have to identify the keywords and phrases. They also have to look at the writing process. How do I generate my ideas? How do I gather my ideas and put them together and revise them? And these are some of the things they're doing in class. Teachers are going through the writing process with them. But when they go into the examination, they are also going to go through this writing process in record time. So that is why they have to master it. Things like paragraphing and using topic sentences and concluding sentences, using those things are going to come out in the performance task. Using link words like therefore, however, to make the writing flow, to make it seamless. Those are things the curriculum deals with. If it is not a factual writing, they're going to be using their figures of speech, you know, their simile, their little metaphor to make their writing come alive. And of course, they are going to evaluate what they have done. Another part of the writing here is the more factual writing. So the other part dealt with narratives and so, but in the performance-based text, we focus mainly on pulling from different sources. And you will realize here that one of the objectives is organize and synthesize information gathered from various sources. And that's a big part of what they do in the examination, looking at text features. So sometimes they get a poster that has pictures, that has text boxes and bold lettering. Those are what we call external text features. And these are things they learn about in school. And when it talks about table of contents and index, these are things that they could get on a paper, looking at an index, looking at a table of contents, looking at a graph or map. And parents, this is why it is so important for you to inform yourselves. I know sometimes people are clamoring after past papers, but you know, you may just be surprised, you know, to go into an exam and realize that nothing that anybody ever told you about that was on a past paper comes up, because there are different things in the curriculum and the examiners have different options from which to pull questions. So some of the possible sources of the performance task, as you can see, poems are, you know, the students may get a poem to respond to. They may get an advertisement. They may get posters. They may get a label, you know, from some food item. It could be an article. It could be a comic strip. It could be a notice, a passage, right? An excerpt from a text, a utility bill, such as a light bill where they look at trends. The possibilities are endless because the performance task addresses real life situations, right? And real life context. So right now we are going to quickly look at a possible performance task. And note that I say possible, all right? So this one, while I'm not going through it in detail, this source is basically an informational piece. It could be an article, it could be a passage, and it is about dengue. So it gives some information on how it is contracted and what are the symptoms and how it can be treated, etc. Then we have this other source too, which is actually a poster, right? That says stop mosquitoes from breeding, and it tells you what you should do at your house, around buildings, in your garden, etc. And notice the text features I spoke to a while ago that are in the curriculum. You have pictures, you have several pictures that are here. You have a symbol with, you know, with that line through it to say, let us get rid of it because there's that line through the mosquito. So students need to be learning to pay attention when they look at, you know, things like a poster or a notice or whatever, to be focusing on the features that are there, and those are in the curriculum and they are learning about it. So in this scenario, the student, as you can see, an elderly neighbor is very concerned about dengue fever. She hears people talking about it and she has asked the child who is the persona here to give more information on the disease. And so the student is going to use the two sources, which is the article and or the passage, as well as the poster. And note it says, along with your own knowledge, to write a letter to your neighbor explaining 3 major symptoms of dengue fever and 2 ways of preventing the spread of the disease. And the student is asked to write the letter. They are given the lines. All right, so one of the things in the curriculum when we looked a while ago that we saw is that the student should recognize the key terms, because the key terms in the prompt will keep the student focused, will allow them to deliver what the examiner expects and to get the highest marks possible. So in this case, the student is, notice the word neighbor is underlined, elderly woman. Now, neighbor is important, as we'll see later, because that is going to tell you the kind of writing, that it's not a formal piece of writing because it's your neighbor you are talking to. This person is elderly. So when you talk to the elderly, you know you have to treat an elderly person with respect. So the tone of the writing shouldn't be like talking to your peers, right? Because this is an elderly woman who should get respect. She is concerned about the dengue fever that people. So you're going to, the student will have to, in their writing, allay the fears of this elderly person. So there should be things like, don't worry, I know you may be worried, you know, to show that you really, the student really picked up the information from the prompt about the concern. And note it says, has asked you to give her more information on the disease. So that is the focus of the writing. So the main part of the question, so the first part gives you the scenario, it gives you the context, the background. And now the second part tells the student exactly what to do. So it says using information gathered from both sources. And parents, it can be 3 sources, it can be 2. I don't think they ever go to 4, but just to say, sometimes people have it in their minds, 3 sources, but don't be fixed on that. Whether it's 2 or 3, then students should be prepared. So it says using information gathered from both sources along with your own knowledge. Now, it doesn't always say along with your own knowledge, but in this case, it says if you know anything else apart from what the sources tell you, you may include them in the letter. Write a letter to your neighbor. Notice this is very important. Not write an essay, not write a composition or an article, but write a letter to your neighbor explaining 3 major symptoms of dengue fever and 2 ways of preventing the spread of the disease. Now, remember we said before, because it's a neighbor, then we know that the letter that the student will be writing will not be a business letter, but it will be a friendly letter. Now, let us look at a very good strategy for unpacking the prompt or that question that the student just got. One thing is to look at the purpose, first of all. What is the reason for the writing that I'm being asked to do? Is it to describe? Is it to explain? What is it? Is it to convince somebody? Because the purpose is very important. So if the student does not pick up the purpose, then that is going to be a problem. So let us go back to the prompt. Notice that it says explaining 3 major symptoms. So that tells us that this piece of writing is explanatory in nature. You are primarily or mainly going to explain. Who is the audience? Who is the student going to be writing to? An elderly neighbor. And that audience, because that audience is a special audience, it determines. Remember, we said she's elderly, respect must be shown. You have to also explain, because by virtue of her age, she may not understand certain things very well. So she has to get the details. And she's your neighbor. So based on the audience, we know that the writing is not a formal writing. It is sort of informal because she's your neighbor. Strong verb. So the verb that indicates the purpose of the writing, and it's the same verb explaining there, because that tells you that that is mainly what you'll be doing. Now, what is the topic? Now, we know that a letter doesn't really have a topic. An essay or an article would have a topic, but the word topic here is still important because it tells you what is the main focus of what you will be doing. And of course, the last one, the task, what kind of information, what kinds of information will you need to include in your writing and in what format it should be? All right, so let us go and see how we fill in this information. I started filling it in. So the purpose of this piece of writing is clearly to explain 3. And in the question, note that the word 3 and the word 2, those 2 words are capitalized. We usually do this for the students to keep them focused, to let them pay attention, that it says 3 major symptoms and 2 ways. So we don't want the students going beyond that because it means you would not be fulfilling the requirements of the examination. The audience, we already said, it's an elderly, and also it's a female neighbor. So if the student starts saying Mr. Jones, then we know that the student missed that detail in the prompt. The strong verb is explaining the topic here. Remember, we say a letter doesn't have a topic. So the word topic here is focusing like a kind of theme, right? Which is what are you focusing on in the letter? The symptoms and prevention of dengue fever. And what is the task? The task is to get information from the article, the poster, and personal knowledge about the symptoms and ways of preventing the spread of dengue. And what is the format? The format is a letter. What kind of letter? A friendly letter. Why a friendly letter? Because you're writing to a neighbor. Okay? Now, so we see that is how the student breaks down the prompt. Now, the other part that I don't really have a slide on it, but to remind students as they know, the letter, many times they focus when they're writing a letter on just the format. You have the address and you have the greeting and all of that, but they miss the details that are in the body. Now, what goes into the body is dependent on the question. Remember, you're giving the student is giving the elderly neighbor information. The student is trying to make her less worried. The student is giving information on the symptoms, ways of preventing it, and it tells you 3 major symptoms, and it says 2 ways of preventing. So that's the body. And remember, it's an elderly neighbor, so there must be little words to show auntie. Some of us call elderly people auntie or whatever, mommy or whatever, or Mrs., but she is an elderly neighbor, so the due respect should be given in the letter. And the things that the student learn about your paragraphs and a conclusion. So something like, so I hope you're no longer worried. Don't be disturbed by what people are saying, but remember these points that I've given to you. Because remember, it's a real life situation. So some quick tips and guidelines before I go to the CBT. Parents, you can interact with your children, by having them read labels that are on the cans or the bottles, reading posters and notices around them, the print in the environment, and asking them some simple questions. What information is it communicating? Are there any warnings about a product? What are these? What should you avoid and why? What are the causes and effects of these things? Who should use this product? Should somebody with diabetes use this? It says it has 50 grams of sugar, right? Things like those. And also having them compare different labels or poems or whatever it is that they're reading, and to say things that are dealing with a similar topic or a similar issue, to compare them in the same way that they would be comparing in the examination. Sometimes we don't remember poems, but a poem could pop up on the exam. So many times parents read stories, but they don't read things like poems and other writings. So we ask you to broaden that as you help to prepare them for, sorry, I missed one. No, I don't think I did. All right, so that is it for the performance task. And you will see right now that there is no need to worry about it. It is a real life question. All the students need to do is to ensure that the skills that are in the curriculum, they have learned or mastered these skills. Now, the curriculum-based test is the other test. This one, unlike the one before, this is a multiple choice paper. And we know what is multiple choice. You can see it from this image that they get different letters and they are to select the letter that matches the answer. And this multiple choice paper is based on skills that have been taught in the curriculum. So I'm just showing you, this is just one area. This is comprehension. This is the comprehension strand that we call reading for meaning and enjoyment. And I will just point you quickly to one or two areas. Now you will notice that it has one aspect that says distinguish facts from opinions. So of course, the student could get something on a paper to distinguish facts from opinion. It has to do with predicting outcome. They could be asked that based on this, what would you, based on this picture or based on this stimulus, what would you expect? Main ideas. So there is something there about main ideas. And there is something about responding to questions at different levels, literal, inferential, critical. So the students can get questions which they can just find it right away in the passage. We call that literal. And they can get questions that they have to read and draw conclusions or infer. And we have critical levels where they may be asked, based on this passage, the best topic is, they're making a judgment. So they can get, so the curriculum drives the types of questions that we give to students. So there is no secret about the test excepting the curriculum. So if you want to find the secret to what is going to be on the exam, go to the curriculum. So this just gives you a few of the curriculum areas that could be tested. These are just a few. One, under vocabulary development, because the curriculum has different strands. It has those that deal with vocabulary and word recognition. It has those that deal with grammar, comprehension, the writing. We already tested it up there. And we have the research, and the research comes in the writing as well, right? With the prompts and the sources. So if you look at this, if the examiners want to test vocabulary, they could give the students something with affixes, prefixes, suffixes, synonyms, using a subject index. These are just some of the areas they could get. For language structure, they could get subject and verb agreement, tense, agreement of pronoun, a host of things. Comprehension, they could get things about finding main ideas, cause and effect, sequence, because all those things are in the curriculum. Very quickly for you to see what some of the items may look like. So one of the themes in the curriculum, there's another thing, the curriculum has themes which are like context in which we put the information. So we don't just say, what is a prefix? One of the themes is independence. So this question is based on independence, and the student would have to select the prefix that would go before the word to complete it, right? So it says, for a Caribbean person in the 17th and 18th century, independence would be totally unexpected. So the student would select D, and the student would do the same for number 2. This other item is about an index. We didn't show you all of the index because of space on the slide, so you're only seeing a part of the index. But we know at the back of a book, we have something that is called an index that looks at different topics that are treated in the book and where they can find it. So this is something the students are taught. So they could get a question where they're asked to respond to different things about the index. So for example, in this question, they're asked which area is addressed most in this index. And they would have to go and look and say, how many pages? This one is from 45, and count it and say, okay, so this subject is addressed most in the index. So you see that the math is also integrated, because they will have to check the pages from 33 to 44, how many pages, from that to that, and compare the different responses to say which one would be the one mostly treated. This one is about the main idea. And that is one of the skills in the curriculum. So the students would read the paragraph and they would say, what is the main idea? What is it talking about mainly in this paragraph? And they would select one of the responses. So to close off, parents, what are some of the things you can do to prepare your students for the curriculum-based test? And one of the first things you should do as parents is to acquaint yourselves with the curriculum. Look at the pages that say scope and sequence for language arts, and look at these kinds of skills the students could get. I heard our first presenter talk about practice exercises. So you could get your students to practice. Many of them have a lot of textbooks. You have textbooks from when you used to go to school. Let them use the books and practice grammar, comprehension, vocabulary. And of course, the students should be reading. You should be reading with them and helping them to answer questions, because this is also part of the multiple choice, the CBT. The questions that they answer should be related to the skills in the curriculum. So it shouldn't be just answering any old. So when you're looking for the practice exercises that you're giving them, they should be related to the skills that they're getting. And check your students' classwork books, check their notebooks. Find out what they are learning in class and help them to build those skills, and talk to your teacher. Work with the teachers to find out what they are doing, what areas your child may be weak in, and try to get the support. If you can't help the child, you may know somebody who can help. A sibling could help. All right, so that's it for the performance task and the curriculum-based test. Hold your questions until the end, when Mr. Williams will field your questions about these critical areas. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much too. Thank you so much to Dr. McLean Francis. Quite comprehensive and also easy to follow as you went through the CBT and the performance task for language arts. As you were told, we await the questions later on. We have a question and answer segment, so don't leave us. We want to acknowledge those on YouTube, on the JTC YouTube page. I want to acknowledge you. So many of you, over 70 odd persons, are on the YouTube page. And we also right now have 160 persons. Still, we're asking you, it's quite interesting. So I want you to reach out to your parent group and have them join, or have other persons join. We're doing this just for you. And we acknowledge the fact that persons were worried and all those things earlier on. I'm sure you're feeling at ease, somewhat at ease right now. All right, we're going to move down. I just want to ask right now the individual from the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica, just wondering if you're with us. If you're with us, we want to acknowledge you. You should have offered greetings earlier. We did not see you. Just identify yourself, your own or representative that is on.
Can we ask them to raise their hand, because they may
just
not
raise your
be
hand. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Taylor Campbell. Just raise your hand if you're here representing the MPTAJ and should have proffered their greetings earlier on. If we see that, then we'll come back to it. All right. We want to okay, Lenworth Locke. All right, okay. Mr. Right. Locke.
Tell him to keep his hand up so we can find him. Locke, Lenworth. I'm not seeing him again. Okay, there's a Galaxy. Okay, let me see. Galaxy A03 core. Hello? Are you from the NPTAJ? Okay, I guess not. All right. I'm not hearing. Mr. Jacobs? Okay, all right. Go ahead, Mr. Williams. I'm not seeing or hearing. Mr. Williams?
All right, I'm back on. All right.
Yeah, I'm not hearing from the representatives.
Okay, thank you. I muted myself a while ago and I was just chatting. Didn't recognize that I was muted. Sorry about that. My mouth was moving, but no one was hearing me. All right,
Okay.
we've got to move down. We've got to move down to the special education unit. And because we need to understand that there are support systems within the Ministry of Education for persons with specialties, and really and truly we are an inclusive Ministry of Education, and so no one is left behind. Every child can learn, every child must. And so I'm going to be asking at this time Miss Jennifer Harris from the Special Education Unit to come, and she's going to be speaking to the whole matter of supporting students with special needs as it relates to the curriculum-based tests and the performance tasks. Miss Jennifer Harris, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon to
the
you.
Ministry of Education, parents. I'm happy that you're here. We're gonna speak. I will be taking you down a little bit because I know you were just schooled. So now I'm going to talk about another side of what we do in the ministry. How do we help students from the special education unit who have special needs? And as we know that special needs are everywhere. It doesn't matter where you live, which schools you attend, or your background, there may be persons among you that have special needs. So therefore, it is our job at the special education unit to provide some form of accommodation for some of our students who have special needs, whether they may have an intellectual challenge, it may be behavioral, it may be academic, it may be physical challenge, and it may be a medical problem. So whatever those challenges are, every year we get hundreds of assessment reports, medical reports, and we go through them one by one to determine what are the needs that some students have. So there are some accommodations and modifications that we provide for those students. In the form of accommodation, the students may have need a little time to complete their examination task, so they might get some extra time. If it is a behavioral problem like a child with ADHD or a child who has autism, they may get a prompter. Depending on the scope of the student's challenge, they may get a writer or a scribe, we call it a scribe, or a reader. So some students get readers and writers. Some students are closely monitored throughout the exam to ensure that they stay on task. Some students get preferential seating. So they are seated close to the examiner so that they will know if they have challenges and what they can do for them to alleviate, to minimize the types of challenges. So at all times, we want the child to be able to complete the exam as best as possible. Therefore, the Ministry of Education and Youth provide these types of accommodations. There are also modifications that we provide. Some students may have visual problems, low vision, or they may be completely blind. For students with low vision, they get the accommodation of large print. So the examination will be specially prepared for them with larger print so that they are able to read. We would hope that that child would be exposed to using large print wherever they go to school, so that when they come to the exam, it won't be something that is strange for them. Some students do the exams in Braille as well. That's a modification that we do. So we do large print and we do Braille. So I spoke about accommodation and modification. So we modify and accommodate to suit the child so that the child will be able to manage as good as possible. But how do we get a child to get modifications and accommodations? This child must have the most recent assessment report, whether it is a psychoeducational assessment report or a medical report. It can be something, if it's in the case of ADHD, you might get something from the child guidance clinic. Whatever comes in with the child, it is called an assessment, whether it's medical, psychoeducational, or just another form of report. As long as it is done and it is verified to be authentic, we use it to grant accommodation. So parents, it is your responsibility to know what is happening with your child before the exam starts. Is your child having behavioral challenges that they might not be able to sit still to complete their exams? Are they having learning challenges that they will need some form of accommodation? Or are they having some physical problems? Maybe they cannot grasp the pencil as good as possible to be able to complete an exam, or some form of medical problem, cerebral palsy. And I don't know, but most year, almost a day or two before the exam, a child has broken his hand, or their foot break, or something happened. These are called freak accidents. So we try to accommodate students as best as possible so that they'll be able to complete their exam. Some students, based on what is happening with them, they have to do their exams in their hospital. So regardless of what the challenge is, the Ministry of Education and Youth tries their best to accommodate these children so that they're able to complete their exam. Once it is identified, parents, that your child has a need, whatever that need is, it is your responsibility to provide the support that is needed. Take the steps to have them be assessed. Go to a place like Michael. There are several agencies that do assessments so that the reports can come into us. There are many times we get a letter from parents to say that they're seeking assistance for their child, but no formal diagnosis comes in with it. We cannot action that because we work solely off something that is given from an agency that is reputable and recognized so that they can get the accommodation. You will be surprised to know how much the students can do when they get these forms of accommodation to facilitate them in completing their exam. So some of you worry because you say your child cannot read well. Your child has some writing challenges or other challenges, but the facility is there, and you need to learn to know and understand that the ministry provides these types of facilities for, I'm sorry, my light went, to provide these types of facilities for your children so that they're able to maximize. So I'm going to leave you, my time is very short. I'm going to leave you with a few words of encouragement. Encourage your child at all times to do your best. I know other speakers spoke to that. Provide support needed ahead of time. Do not leave it until the day before, the week before. Do it ahead of time so that we are able to give the necessary accommodation that the child really needs. Be calm and do not stress the child ahead of the exam. And parents, you have to stay calm. You cannot stress because you pass that on to your children. Encourage your students to use all the time given to complete the exam papers. I've seen students finishing in 15 minutes, 10 minutes, when the exam is 40 minutes. They may have a challenge reading, but if they take their time, they'll be able to do something more with all the time that is allotted to them. Remain positive, expect the best, and let the students know that whatever they do, you're satisfied, because only their best is good enough. And I cannot stress that point much more. Only their best is good enough. And finally, I'm gonna use these 5 P's to tell you, to teach you something today, that proper preparation prevents poor performance. I repeat, proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's my few words. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good, all the best for your children, and have a good rest of the day.
Proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's the word, that's a closing word. The fact is, no child is left behind. Accommodation is available for students with special needs to complete examination. And I like the point you made at the end, Ms. Harris. Encourage your child to do their best. Request support ahead of time. Do not stress the child before exam. Encourage your child to use the time allocated for the exam, and just remain positive. You've got the tips, parents, and this is what we ask you to do. There are accommodations that are made for students to ensure that whatever situation they're faced with, if they have special needs, then accommodations are right there. So thank you so much to Ms. Jennifer Harris from the Special Education Unit for sharing with us, and I'm sure our parents are empowered. At the last count between the Zoom platform and the YouTube, we have approximately 270 persons at the last count I made on the 2 platforms. Welcome everybody. Those on YouTube, welcome. We just looked at language arts as section 1, and also special needs. We're going into section 2, and we're going to look at mathematics and science, and then we're going to top it all off with looking at the administration of the exams. We're going to do that in a minute, but we're going to look at mathematics right now, and we're going to be asking Ms. Sharila Powell from the Halfway Tree Primary School to come and present on mathematics. So we're looking at CBT and performance tasks. Go ahead, Mrs. Sharila Powell. Are you there, Mrs. Powell?
She was on. I'm checking to see if she's still on. Ms. Powell? I don't know if she got bumped off. Dr. T, do you know what happened to Ms. Powell?
I'm checking to see what's happening.
All right, no problem.
All right, while you check.
I'll go ahead then.
All right, while you check. All right. All right, we can go to science. So we're going to science, and we're going to be asking Dr. Taylor Campbell from the core curriculum unit. My tongue twisted a while ago, tongue tied a while ago. Core curriculum unit to do her presentation.
Yes,
science.
we heard that tongue twister. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. All right, so glad you could join us for for this session. All right, which we know should help our parents and teachers and students as well. All right, so for this particular section, I'll be looking at science and some of the competencies that are being assessed in the curriculum-based test for science at grade 6 and the performance task at grade 5. And we will do this by looking at some items as well as the skills that are being assessed for those items. All right. So let me see if I can get off this. All right. So For grade 6, which is the exam, the grade 6 CBT, the science is assessed under 3 main areas, all right? So there are what we call the core ideas or the core concepts, which basically looks at the important scientific concepts that the students are to know. So whether it is under environment, light and sound, materials, the human body systems, or mixtures, right? The concepts under those areas, those would come under core ideas or core concepts. And then we have another section called cross-cutting concepts. Let me just say, cross-cutting concepts refer to mainly to the student's ability to integrate knowledge from different areas, transfer learning. And I'll pinpoint something about that a little later on, but the cross-cutting concepts, the concept itself may not, or the area may not be taught specifically, but the skill, that is your ability to integrate this knowledge. Know that you would have learned something under light and sound. Can you use that information in another area of science, right? That basically denotes cross-cutting concepts. And then we have the science practices, which is looking at the student's ability to demonstrate some scientific behaviors and use it to solve problems. And so I'll give you a listing of these practices in a slide or two. So that's for the grade 6 test, curriculum-based test. So I mentioned the practices. So there are some science practices. We call them science and engineering practices. They are written into the curriculum. So as the students carry out activities in the curriculum, they're supposed to be using and demonstrating these practices to solve real problems, right? To plan and carry out investigations, to use models, to ask questions and come up with solutions for different problems, to analyze and interpret data, to use mathematics and computational thinking. So although it is science, you can get whether it's a problem or an item or something that would incorporate their use and their knowledge of mathematical principles, right? They should be able to construct explanations and come up with solutions. And of course, they can defend and provide arguments, right? To defend their position on a particular piece of evidence, right? And of course, they are expected to be able to obtain, evaluate, and communicate information. In a number of these cases, some of these practices or skills overlap with ones for language, for instance, based on what Dr. McLean Francis presented earlier. They will overlap with social studies, they'll overlap with mathematics, all right? So really and truly, you're not really restricted to a particular area, but these skills can come from any area, all right? So just to give you a little, let me just pick one or two of these practices so you can understand better what we're saying. So in science, we talk about, the fact that the scientist is always trying to provide an answer to a question or to a problem. All right, and so there are times they may be asked to determine what is being investigated, right? Or to refine what is to be investigated, what is to be tested. They would, of course, in their science classes, be carrying out investigations, and so there are certain processes to carry out those investigations. Particular among that is this idea of a fair test, and I'll come to that a little later. They should be able to use models and diagrams and graphs and so on and get information from it. So that is what we mean by developing and using models. So it's not just a physical model, although you can have a physical model, but to represent an idea is also a model. All right. Of course, analyzing and interpreting data speaks for itself. I want you to pay attention to this, the one that talks about engaging in arguments from evidence, right? So when they get some information and they have come up with their conclusion. What is the evidence, right? Which is the information. How can they defend that? Defend that conclusion based on the evidence presented. So that is something that they also need to develop. All right, so let's look at a few. All right, let me see if I can take off this. Probably. Right, okay. Okay, so for instance, so as Dr. McLean pointed out, the areas tested are linked to the curriculum. No questions asked. They are directly linked to the curriculum. And so as you can see here, this particular question would be linked to a particular objective in the curriculum. So parents were advising, get acquainted with your respective curriculum for the different respective curricula for the different subject area. All right. So this is a question: droplets of water formed in a window near the pot of hot water or near a pot of hot water. This is something that you probably see when you're cooking at home, right? And the question is asking what best explains why droplets formed on the window. All right, you may have seen it and may not really, thought about what it is. You could go ahead and try and try the question in the chat, which is the best answer there, right? Why the droplets formed. This is something that we probably see around us and may not realize when you get up in the morning and you have dew on your grass, right? What is happening there? Why is it that you have that water forming, droplets forming on the grass or on the car or on other materials, right? Okay, I guess somebody's answering in the chat. So your answer should be that the window is cold, because really for condensation to take place, it requires that we have a cold surface for that gas, water vapor, to now be transformed into liquid, which is the water droplets. So this is really looking at core ideas, right? This is something that the student would have learned about how we have the processes of changing matter from one form to another, right? So from gas to liquid, as well as they would know that materials, right? Certain materials, for them to do that, they must be cold. All right, I hope you got that one. All right, so here's another one, looking at waste collected from Jamaican households, and the percentages are given. So again, so here they are making use of mathematics and computational thinking, right? They're asked to suggest what portions of the waste should be composted. So again, before they can answer it, they must have an idea of what we would normally compost. We would normally compost those waste materials that can basically decompose, right? So you'll be looking at the materials in that graph, in that pie chart, that can decompose, right? And of course, you can go ahead and try. I'll give you the answer. So really, we're looking at the wood and grass clippings, right? Organic materials from plants and animals. Those are the ones that you would decompose, that you would compost. So wood and grass clippings and food waste should account for 53%. So again, that is looking at the concepts, core concepts that they would have been taught. I'll skip to this one, right? So this is a question looking at an investigation, adding vinegar to baking soda or powder. If you do that, it can actually create a rocket as the gas is released from that reaction. This is something that students always like to try, all right? And it's something that you can also try with your child. However, this question has presented some information, right? So they are given some information, they need to analyze that information, and they need to come up with a conclusion. But before that, their knowledge of a fair test is now being assessed. So they are to suggest what should be done to make this a fair test. So I mentioned before under the practices that they are to plan and design investigations. So knowledge of a fair test should be something that they are exposed to. They have actually done investigations, and they can, actually design a fair test or make some changes to make something a fair test, that sort of thing. All right. So really, in a fair test, for just in case you're asking, it's really you're trying to test how one factor affects an investigation. So if you want to test how that factor affects investigation, you will only change that one thing, but you keep everything else the same. All right. And so in this particular instance, if you're checking to see how the amount of baking soda affects the height of the rocket, what would we keep the same? So we'd want to keep the type of baking soda the same, all right? And we want to look at the amount of vinegar, right? So you're changing the amounts of baking soda, so that would be changing, right? But you want to ensure that you're using the same baking soda or baking powder, and you're keeping the amount of vinegar the same, right? And then you're checking to see how that affects the height of your rocket. All right, and of course, using that information, they may be asked something about what is the conclusion from this investigation. And so the conclusion, so here, just to point out, in science, there are some terms: conclusion, prediction, hypothesis. Those are some terms that the student must be familiar with. So a conclusion is normally done at the end of an investigation. So the conclusion has to be here that as the amount of baking soda increased, so you would make that statement after you have concluded your investigation. The rocket height increased, basically based on the trend seen here. All right, I'll skip this one and go to this example, because this example, if I can take off this chat so you can see the objective. The objective says observe, collect, and record information regarding interacting factors within an environment. All right, so that is the objective in the curriculum. So the item is testing that objective. And the reason why I'm pointing out this particular item is that I mentioned earlier about cross-cutting concepts. So it's more likely that they would not have been necessarily taught about body temperatures of different animals in the curriculum. However, they are able to use their knowledge of patterns, looking at patterns, looking at cause and effect relationships, that sort of thing, to answer this question. So although the actual topic itself is not taught, you're expected to use those skills to answer this question. So this would be an example of an item that is looking at the skill and not necessarily just the information, right? So it's the item is looking at the cross-cutting concepts, your ability to transfer that knowledge from other areas, all right? And so which body temperature are they most likely to have after a few days? And I hope you got B. All right, so obviously here the snake's body temperature changes with the temperature, whereas for the rat, which is a mammal, it's about 38, 39 usually. All right. Okay, Now for the performance task. This is for grade 5. All right. So remember, CBT is grade 6, performance task, grade 5, science. I'm going to quickly go through this. So Dr. Francis would have indicated already that we're looking at generally a real world scenario or something that they would have been exposed to in the real world. All right. And this one very quickly comes from the area of nutrition. So in your grade 5 curriculum documents, we have different units, energy forms, sorry, forces and work, nutrition, ways food are grown, machines, and weather data. So all those areas are possible for your performance tasks for grade 5. So nutrition, that is chosen because I know that's something you can relate to. The task, of course, is related to the objectives in the curriculum. All right, so those are the objectives. I'm also showing you that the same information, areas like resource and technology that your child should also be exposed to, will also be treating some of these concepts. So in family and consumer management, they are also learning about nutrition and healthy diets and so on, all right? So this is the question, if I can show you. All right, so that's the question. A mother is going to the grocery store to buy groceries for her family. She is seeing 2 brands of canned soup. Dr. Francis spoke earlier about getting information from labels and so on. This is one, right? And so there are brand A and brand B, and she needs to make a decision about which one to purchase. So that is the scenario that is being used. Let me see if I can go through this very quickly. So you are going to be asked some questions about the labels. So in the first case, you are to analyze and interpret that information given to say which brand of canned soup will provide the quickest source of energy, all right, for her family. And so again, for the performance task, you're not going to go into the exam for them to ask you what is nutrition. It's about how you can apply the information that you have already learned about nutrition, all right? So they are to determine which brand will give you the quickest source of energy. So the student will have to know that generally there are certain classes of foods or groups of food that we would associate with getting energy, right? Or quick source of energy. You can get it from your carbohydrates, you can get it from your fats, but the fats are generally stored energy, right? So the carbs would be the quickest source of energy. And so the student must use that information to make that determination of which brand gives you the quickest source of energy. So they're analyzing and interpreting data, all right? And so if you were looking, then easy prep would be the choice, all right? And note the student would probably have been asked to give reasons. So it's not just to identify that, but they need to communicate that and provide some information as to why they would choose
Dr.
that.
Francine, somebody
Yes.
asked, what about the sugars?
What about which sugars?
Because you said carbohydrates.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm just highlighting here. So the sugars, so they have basically added up here. So the sugars, yes, the sugars certainly would be the quickest source, right? So this brand would have 7 grams compared to that one that has 2 grams. All right. So the sugars, yes, they are the quickest source because they would be used up much more readily. Depending on what form the carbs are present in, they would have to be broken down first before they can be used up. All right. Okay, so thanks for pointing that. No problem. All right, so let's continue. Then the other question here is asking about which brand do we consider to be healthier? So again, the student will have to do some analysis of the information given, all right? And do some comparisons, okay? To make the determination, they can compare calories, which close enough. Note the fat content of the 2 different brands, the carbs, as mentioned before, the proteins, and look at the vitamins that are provided by each brand. And we're expecting them now to come up with an answer as to which they would suggest is the brand that is healthier, a healthier option for the family. All right, good. And of course, they can make that determination. So they're using mathematics and computational thinking. They're analyzing and interpreting data. Sorry. All right. And then here they may be asked, all right, the sodium content, and because it is that students may not necessarily be taught about sodium at this point, right, in terms of balanced diet, right? But we can still, you know, bring that across in a way that they are given the information and they can use it now to answer a particular problem. So they're told that there's an elderly man who's diagnosed with high blood pressure, right? So knowing the sodium content, knowing that sodium is normally associated with, or high intake of sodium is normally associated with the higher risk of high blood pressure, then they will now be asked to indicate which brand would be more suitable for this elderly man who is diagnosed with high blood pressure, right? So they're not necessarily expected to learn about sodium, but given this information, they can make some determination. So they're engaged in argument from evidence based on the information given, all right? And so comparing the sodium content, they should be able to indicate which is better for this gentleman who has high blood pressure. All right. All right, I think my time is more than up. But again, using their knowledge of all right, sorry, I think I'm getting, all right, wrap up. All right, so here we have now a healthy eating plate, right? So this is something that they would have been exposed to. They would have learned about the food groups. They would have learned about which is in this case, which should be given in the largest proportion. So of course, they can look at this diagram and make that determination. Normally, we're expecting to have staples in the largest portion, right? Good. And then now, using that particular information, you could now take it a step further. And if you're noticing the questions are actually getting them to move from one level, probably in terms of just picking up information to know using that information to look at a completely different scenario and to work out a model, right, for what an adolescent male athlete would likely, what their food plate would look like. So here, they'd have to make some determination. Okay, so as an adolescent male athlete, what do we know about athletes? What do athletes need? What food group would they probably need more of, or probably an increase of, right? Things like that. So they're making that determination, right? So they're building muscle. So maybe they'll incorporate some more protein in their diet. They certainly need some more carbs and so on to burn off that, you know, when they're exercising, that sort of thing. So you would now see how that food plate, right, would change, right, based on the person, in this case, the male athlete. So we would, that it's not that they are giving us an exact percentage here, but we want to see that there's some understanding that, for instance, the food from animals, that's the proteins would increase, right? And of course, the staples and so on would increase, right? So that is the sort of thing that we would be looking for. All right, almost finished. If it's a teenager, we know about teenagers, they may be trying to cut, certain things that will give them, probably breakout on their skin. So they may want to be cutting the fats and oils and increasing the fruits and vegetables. And so you want to see that that understanding is there in the model of their food plate. All right. And finally, an adult trying to lose weight. Again, we're expecting the student to be thinking, okay, the person's trying to lose weight. They may want to be, increasing their fruits and vegetable intake, right? And having less carbs and that sort of thing, right? So we want to see that information represented there. So essentially then, they are basically using what they know, right, about how persons use their food, how the different foods affect persons to make that, to make those changes for that model. All right. So I'm sure you would have, I won't go into what should parents do, because I think we have mentioned that a few times, but just to say then, as you can see, really, if you expose your child to real things, you come from the supermarket, you buy a certain product, you just ask them to give their thoughts on it, right? Some real simple things around them, right? They can use that. You can use that as parents to see what they're learning, how they can apply and transfer these skills. So the skills that we mentioned before, those are the ones that are being tested, whether it is in a scenario that deals with farming, a scenario that deals with an investigation. It's the same skills that are being tested. It's just that we're using different contexts to test those skills. All right, I'll stop there. I'm going to put this link in the chat for evaluation purposes for the entire session. At the end of the session, you will be able to make that complete that evaluation. If you have any questions, again, you can hold it or put it in the chat. Over to Mr. Williams.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Taylor Campbell, for that comprehensive presentation as relates to science. And I'm sure my parents or parents here online are quite comfortable. Over 270 persons right now between YouTube and the Zoom platform. And I'm sure by the end of the evening, so many other persons will be watching as they come home from work and getting engaged. I'm sure you're also sending out the words, parents, to your parent groups for them to view what is happening. We recognize on the YouTube page, Sherry Palmer, we recognize Audrey Hamilton, we recognize Annette McDonald, Siobhan Cheese, and so many others, Kayla, Julian Tape, and Andre Hamilton. We recognize you on the YouTube page right now, and so many others. All right, we're going to go down, but just before we get into the question and answer, just checking out if Mrs. Sherilla Powell is on from the Halfway Tree Primary. Are you on? Are you on? Looking at mathematics, seem to have her on, and therefore we're going to go now to we're back to Dr. Taylor Campbell to look at exam administration. Over to you, Doc. Dr. Taylor Campbell?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay.
I was just seeing a message in the chat. Somebody's asking about slide with what parents can do, if that can be shown. I don't know if you're seeing that. Could the parent indicate whether it's from the science or just general?
Okay, I guess I want you to go back through that because you jumped. You jumped the.
Yes, I was trying to cut time.
Yeah, that's all right. We need to see it. All right.
All right. So I'll
could you please unmute Miss Cheryl Powell, please?
She's back. Okay. All right.
She's always there, but she's muted.
She was co-hosting us, so we're not.
Yeah, but she's muted. You remember she had to go out, she dropped off?
Okay. All right. So
I will make her co-host. Give me 1 minute. All right, parents, we will show the other information about what parents can do in a minute. All right.
all right. So as we await getting on Mrs. Sherilla Powell from the African Primary.
She's on. Yes, she's on.
She is on. Welcome back, Mrs. Powell. Thank you. So we're going to have you present now, and then I think we really need to see that aspect of the presentation in science, Dr. Campbell, regarding what parents need to do. So let's talk mathematics. And from the Halfway Tree Primary, we have Mrs. Sherilla Powell. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my colleagues.
Good evening to you.
Parents. Math is fun. I love math. And many persons find themselves saying that I don't like math, but math is in everything that we do. Everywhere we go, we see math. You can observe math. You even drinking some water is math. So I'm just going to get right into it. So this afternoon, we are going to look at the performance task of the math. Let me get this out of the way. All right. So we're looking at problem solving. So we're looking at a performance task in regards to this. The performance task is an activity parents or assessment that asks students to solve a problem by demonstrating their knowledge, understanding, and proficiency. So problem solving. We're going to look at a guide for solving number stories. We're going to understand the problem. Understanding the problem, parents, you have to read the problem. What do you want to find out? What do you know? Do you have the information needed to solve the problem? Then we go to plan what to do. Is there a pattern in this problem? Can you draw a picture or a diagram? And carrying out of the plan, after you decide what to do, you have to look carefully, make a written record of what to do, and you just go ahead and answer the question and look back. Tips. Understand the problem is an important step. Good problem solvers make sure they really understand the problem. Sometimes it's easy to know what to do. Other times you need to be creative. So I'm just going to read the problem to you. Because the performance task, you take a scenario, but you have to encourage your child or ward to look back. Always go back to the question that has been asked of them. And sometimes step by step, the question follow up. So they have to be very careful. So they're going to read the problem carefully. Mr. Calvi told his class that they can have 4 dress-up days in February. We're in the month of February. The students must use the clues below to find the day for each dress-up day. We have polka dot day, stripe day, plaid day, and checkerboard day. So I want you to take out a paper because I want you to get involved in what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you to take out a blank sheet of paper because we're going to plan. We have to plan. And we're going back to the scenario. I said, Mr. Calvert told this class that they can have 4 dress-up days in February. So before we're going to look at February. How many days are in February? We know that in February, 8 days for this year. Any year that is evenly divisible by 4 is a leap year. For example, in 1992 was a leap year. 1996, 2000 are leap years. When it's a leap year, you have 29 days in the month of February. So I want you to just get out your blank paper, and on your blank day, this is your blank paper. I don't know if you're seeing it. And this is the horizontal from left to right. So I want you to write Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, right down to Saturday. You're going to write it on the paper. When you're finished doing that, parents, I want you to have your paper, I want you to do it because I want to actually see what we are going to do. I'm giving you 2 minutes. But the first day must start on Thursday. The first day must start where? On Thursday. And it must have 28 days because we are working with this. We're not working with the actual month of February dates. But because we're in the month of February, I'm using February. So I want you to do that. I'm giving you 2 minutes to do that because we are planning. We are just going to see because we're going to look at some things that we have to find a pattern. We are going to see how we can draw, picture, diagram, because we want to act out the problem. We have to find a problem, a pattern to use rule. So I'm going to go to problem solving strategies now. You're going to guess and check. You can make a table. You can draw a picture or a diagram, as I said before. I took out this paper for a reason, because I want you to have something actually to work with, because we're going to act out the problem. We're going to find a pattern to use a rule. Check for relevant or irrelevant information. Find smaller parts of a large problem. Make an organized list. Solve a simpler problem, and we're going to work backwards. So you're going to see some of these problem-solving strategies as we do this activity together, because we're going to do it together. So the activity that I have here, Mr. Clavey told his class that they can have 4 dress-up days in February. The students must use the clues below to find the date. Each dress-up day, all that day is on a day with a 1 in its number and 6 days after Plaid Day. Plaid Day is on Wednesday. Stripe Day is 15 days after Plaid Day. Checkerboard Day is 10 days before Stripe Day. So I want everybody to have their calendar, because you have created your calendar and we are going to work it through, because I wanted to show you that it is no hard and fast. I'm making you comfortable. So what are the expectations, what they're going in with, the skills that Dr. McLean Francis and Dr. Taylor spoke about before, and they have told you all about what is expected of the performance task already and the curriculum based. So basically we are doing the actual work, the actual activity. So question 1A. So let us look at the calendar that you have created. You have your calendar with the days. So we're going to look at, remember I said to you, the first day must start on Thursday. So polka dot day is on a day with a 1 in it, in its number, and 6 days after Plaid Day. So we're going to analyze now. Let us look at the calendar again with a 1 in its number. So we look at the calendar, we know that we have number 1, a Thursday there. We have number 10 with a 1 in it, number 12. We have 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 21. So we are looking at all the days that have a 1 in its number, because it said polka dot day is on a day with a 1 in its number and 6 days after Plaid Day. Plaid Day is on a Wednesday. So we know that Plaid Day is on a Wednesday, but we're looking at Plaid Day on a Wednesday. So we look at the 14th. The question said polka dot day is on a day with a 1 in its number and 6 days after Plaid Day. So let us look. All right. So if I start at the 14th, because we are looking at the plot days on a Wednesday, so we have the 7th, the 14th, 21, and 28. And remember, it says 6 days after plot day. So we're going to try the 14th. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 days after plot day. But it said the number must have a 1 in it. But I'm not seeing when I reach on the number 20 on my on February. There's no 1 in 20. So okay, let me go again because I'm trying to find a pattern. I'm trying to check my answer. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to solve as much as possible. So I'm going to 21. So 6 days after plot day will be polka dot day. So let us go 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. I learned on 27, but 27 doesn't have a 1 in it. So let us try 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everyone, is there a 1 in 13? Yes, a 1 is in 13. So we can safely say that our polka dot day falls on the 13th day of February. So I'm going to put that in. Let me type to you. So let me put polka dot. Because I want it to be neat. So I'm just going to put polka dots. So I'll put that for polka dots. So I'm going down now. Okay. So we already know that plot day is on the 7th day, the 7th of February. Strike day now, it's asking you a strike day is 15 days after plot day. 15 days after plot day. So we're looking at now, so strike day is 15 days after plot day. So we are going to look. That plot day is on the 7th of February, and it said 15 days after plot day. So let us go now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 days after plot day. So we are going to look now. So we are looking at 15 days after plot day. So plot day would be on the 22nd, of February. That will be strike day. But now we're going to look at checker day. It's 10 days before strike day. 10 days before strike day. So why must I go backward? All I could do is take what? 10 from what? 22. And what I would get? I would end up with 12. And I would know that it would fall on the 12. But no. Did you know that working backwards, it is an efficient strategy that is in mathematics? And these are the skills that your child or ward need to master. So parents, we have worked out a performance task and you're looking at it and you're saying, why but the things are hard? Not hard. You're going step by step. So you get a scenario, you get a broad scenario. Then you will have something like task 1, task 2, task 3, and then you're going to work out all the areas that you need to work out based on that scenario. They're not changing anything, you follow the scenario. So what I encourage you to do is ask your child or ward to read carefully. They must read carefully. And as the special need director or the person that was in charge was speaking early on, and she encouraged that we have persons that will come in and help the child or ward. So we are there to scaffold the child and facilitate as much as possible. So I don't want you to start tearing out your head. I say, lad, what they're going to do? No multiple choice. They're just going to do performance task. No, they have all the skills. Instead of that just show you about this calendar and you're looking at this calendar, it's just the same way. You're applying the skills, and the skills are taught by the teachers. The skills are in the curriculum. So they're not going out there and they don't know what to do. They will know exactly what to do because they are prepared. The teachers prepare them for the task. And as a result of this, your child is able to go comfortably. I heard some person were saying earlier on, they are nervous. They don't know what they're going to do. All of those little comments. Some are saying, I'm comfortable. All the students, the children are comfortable, but we are making you comfortable this evening because I know after this evening, after the sessions, you are going to look at it and say, but this I was worrying about. So I don't want you to worry yourself about anything, parents. With the curriculum base, my other colleagues, Dr. McLean and Dr. Taylor, spoke to you about the curriculum-based test. It is multiple choice. You have 40 items for the mathematics curriculum-based test. And they will choose the responses carefully. They have to know how they're selecting the correct response based on the question asked. And if they acquire all these skills that we have taught them, they will be going into that exam comfortable, parents. I know after today, math is fun, and you're going to enjoy performance task, curriculum-based, that is coming up. Just rest assured, everything is okay. I thank you.
Indeed, math is fun. Math is fun. Well, you made it fun. And you had the parents just working out, quite interactive also. So thank you so much. We couldn't have missed this presentation this evening, Mrs. Powell. And I just can imagine your classroom there at the Halfway Tree Primary School. Thank you so much.
You are most welcome, Mr. Williams.
Okay, dokie. So parents, I'm sure you're at ease now, understanding what needs to be done in assisting and preparing your children for the upcoming examinations, the curriculum-based test, the performance task. And I'm sure those who are confused are better able to guide your children moving forward. Mrs. Dr. Taylor Campbell, I know you have that queued right now, where we're going to be looking at those tips for parents, as was asked by Ingrid O. Edwards. The slide with that, what parents can do to improve children's knowledge. Can that be shown again?
Okay, I'm going to show that in a little while. I'll just go through the reminders from the examinations, assessment, and administration services. So our presenter from SAU was unable to make it. So I'll just run through some of the important reminders for parents. All right, so I know by now you know the dates for the grade 6 examinations. You would have completed your ability test already. The performance task for language arts and mathematics will be on March 22nd and 23rd. And write down those dates. If you don't have them, take a screenshot. And of course, the curriculum-based tests, you will have 2 each day. Language arts and science on the 26th of April and mathematics and social studies on the 27th. The grade 5 exam schedule is also given. So performance tasks, some of those that we were discussing earlier. Language arts and science on the 7th of June and mathematics and social studies on the 8th. With respect to the grade 4, you would have seen some communication from the ministry about reviewing the dates for these examinations, primarily because I think they want to get them out earlier so that the schools can use the information to have some targeted intervention for students. So those dates are being reviewed, and that will be communicated to the system as soon as they're decided on. All right, I know Miss Harris spoke about accommodation. So if you have a child who has special needs, you must ensure that that information, that request is made to the special education unit. Well, the information is provided to the special education unit so that they can do the necessary checks and relay that information to assessment. All right, so note, they're saying that the report must be done by a certified psychologist if you want a psychoeducational evaluation. I know sometimes it's parents wait until like a day before the exam. No, that won't work. You need to get that. If you know that your child needs some special accommodation, you need to get that information done now. All right, so that can be made for them. If you have questions about that, I think Ms. Harris is still on the platform, and so she could take your questions in a little while. And of course, we have gone over a lot of the tips for parents and students, all right? And I'm sure you would have heard about, you know, getting enough rest and ensure that your students are eating properly, right? And of course, not to get too anxious about the exam. If you have queries, the assessment unit has a dedicated email address for your queries. So you can take a screenshot of this as well or write down the information. You can, of course, go to the PEP website. There are curriculum documents there. There are test items there, all right? Or you can call the number given to get some assistance, all right? If there's any other information that you wanted, as I said, you can always get in touch with the SAU, get in touch with SAU using this email address, all right? All right, back to I think it was what parents can do from the first presentation, all right? So let me just quickly point out some of the things as Dr. McLean-Francis would have mentioned that before. So as you can see, parents, we would have shown you that for the most part, we're expecting that your child, your students, your children to really use the skills that they would have developed in the different areas, language arts, mathematics, science, social studies. I must apologize for Mrs. Finch-Bassel, who should have done the social studies presentation. She's dealing with an emergency at this point, all right? But essentially, the same things mentioned before, they must develop skills in gathering, extracting, and using information, right? And as was pointed out, this information can be from numerous sources. So whatever you see around you can become a source of information for your students, all right? To use, to demonstrate their skills at analyzing information, take up those newspapers, take up those articles, right? Look at information in tables and graphs and see how well they can analyze the information given. Topical issues, what's happening in the news, right? What's happening in health, all of those are topical issues that could very well form part of the context for an examination problem, right? Good. So again, please engage your students or your child. Use everyday situations as teaching tools. So as you're cooking, science, a lot of science happens in the kitchen, yes? So as you're cooking and as the food is being changed by the heat, that's a chemical change. You can discuss what happens there as opposed to what happens in the refrigerator when you freeze, when you have your water and so on. In most cases, you can see the difference in terms of what's a chemical change, what's a physical change. As they watch the news and other things on television, you can also use those situations as teaching tools. Encourage them to ask questions. I remember when I was growing up, or well, persons used to say, well, even on occasions when their parents couldn't read and write, the parents would question them when they came from school, and they have to be, providing some answers and explaining why this, why that. Even if the parent don't have a clue, you're encouraging the students to communicate information, to provide explanations, to defend what they're saying, all right, as a way to develop those skills. Encourage them to look at real world situations and problems, and to, to give their 2 cents as to how they think that those problems or issues could be solved. All right. Finally, as was mentioned, you need to have a copy of the curriculum document, right? You can ask your parents, your teachers or your school to share. You can go to the PEP website and the documents are there under NSC, right? You can download that and use it to track what your child should be doing, because essentially all the assessments that your students will be exposed to will be based on the curriculum, nothing else but the curriculum. All right, back to you, Mr.
Dr. Taylor Campbell, before you go.
Yes.
There are some questions in the chat. So people are asking, how much is the percentage allocation for the grade 5 performance task and the grade 6 exams? Another person is asking the same question, and someone is asking you to reshare the screen with the grade 5 test dates.
Okay, all right, give me a second to do the reshare. All right, so as to the percentage, the weighting of the different parts of the exam, that at this point, that information has not been, it is being worked out, because as you know, you would have had the exam itself would have the students would not have completed grade 4, right? So based on talks with SAU, right? Let me just find the grade 5. That information, the weighting is under review, so there is no information available now to share. However, I am told that as soon as that weighting has been worked out, so this is for the grade 5, it will be shared with the public. So you will know before long in advance, right, what the weighting is. But I'm told that the psychometricians are reviewing that information. They're reviewing the weighting for the different components of the exam. And so when that is decided on, that information will be shared. All right. Any other questions, Dr. Francis?
Sorry, I'm not seeing anything.
All right, someone is asking, can we access YouTube version of this session?
Just go to Jamaica Teaching Council, go to YouTube, type in Jamaica Teaching Council, and you'll just see it pop up, PEP parent session. You will see that information. I'm trying to go to the slide with the grade 6 information. All right, so just type in the PEP parent session or something like that, right? You will see it come up. Okay. All right, these are the dates for grade 6. You can write it down or take a picture. All right, any more questions, Mr. Williams?
Dr. Francine, before you move on.
Yes.
Sometimes the site is on and sometimes it's not. So they have to constantly check.
No.
Right.
Well,
sometimes
okay.
it's up and sometimes it's down. That's what Mrs. Bird told me. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. So you just have to.
For the Jamaica Teaching Council one?
No, for the PEP website.
Oh, for the PEP website. Okay. All right,
Yes,
no problem.
yes,
All right, yes.
yes,
All right,
that's
great.
right.
I know someone asked earlier on, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Taylor Campbell, sorry.
Yes.
Regarding the presentations that were done this evening, if they can be posted on the PEP website.
Okay, we would have to speak to those who manage the site. We will check and see. All right. Okay. All right, because there's a certain section that manages it. All right. Okay, no problem.
All right, it's time for you to ask your questions. We give it the opportunity for a person now to ask questions. We know we're seeing some in the chat. You can put your hand up if you want to participate, and we will acknowledge you for you to ask your question. We'll continue to monitor the chat for all the questions. So if there are any
So
questions
ask
to any
them
of
to
our
raise
presenters,
to raise their hands. Raise your hands, colleagues, if you have a burning question that wasn't dealt with.
Francine, there's some about the waiting. Did you answer the waiting?
Right. So as I said, so colleagues, please don't get too worried about this waiting. It is under review, because as you would have known, the grade 4 component wasn't done for this particular grade 6 set. So the waiting is under review. So I do not have that information, and SAU has promised that when that is decided on, it will be shared. All right. Miss
all right, I'm seeing
McCarthy.
Charlene McClarty.
Yes.
Could you unmute her?
Please explain what is SAU, Student Assessment Unit. That's the acronym. SAU means Student Assessment Unit, and they're the ones responsible for assessment.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Taylor, oh, sorry.
McClarty.
Yes, good night. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Yes.
All right. It's more of an observation. My daughter is in grade 6, and I know earlier they were talking about not being anxious and all of that. But from my experience, because it's such a new thing and it is heavy. And I just want to give an example, because I will work with her closely, and we were doing a chapter in the Just Think, and it was math-based. And let me tell you, it was so difficult. I mean, I went through college, I did my degree, and I'm telling you, it was such a hard thing trying to figure out the question. I resorted to even posting the question on in my WhatsApp group, asking persons to assist. But you know, the funny thing about it, I prayed about it and I sat with her, and eventually we were able to figure out the question together. So listening to you, I realized, I think even as adults sometimes, because it looks new, we approach it with timidity and say, wow, it look hard. But I realized, if, as you said, the skills that they have been taught, if we just take it step by step and show them, because I think my daughter's confidence has increased because of the fact that we sat together and we actually work it together. But I'm gonna be honest with you, it is a tough curriculum. It's not easy, but
Ms. McClarty, because you mentioned using a book, they said it was Just Think or so. I just want to remind parents that a lot of texts are out there, and some of them present some very, very difficult stuff that you will never see.
But that is the book that they're using at school.
Yes, but I'm just letting you know that there are a lot of publishers, a lot of books, and they may not, the book that you may be using, because I don't remember hearing of Just Think on the approved list, for instance, right?
Right.
So it may be other books that are there, and persons will come up with different scenarios, different tasks, some very difficult things that even I sometimes baffle over, because they have made them too difficult, right? And when you check the curriculum, most times when they go to the exam, the students come back and say, I mean, based on what they were given before and what is actually on the exam paper, it's much easier on the exam paper. So don't get, flustered with a lot of these practice items that are out there that are way above.
I hear what you're saying, but that is going to be difficult, because this is the text that the school is working with, and this is the work they're giving them to do. So because you said that, no, I cannot probably go back, but this is the book they're getting to do homework in. So, I mean, that is what you're working with.
I would check on that particular text, because I've not, I don't know if Dr. McLean Francis has heard of it. Just
no, I've never heard of it, but we can check with Miss Sims. Is Miss Sims still here?
No, I don't think she's on, but
we
normally review the texts that are to be on the approved list, and I've never heard of that one. All right?
Never heard of it.
Okay.
Dr. Francine and Dr. Francis, though the good thing about it here, Ms. McCarthy, is that they're able to think at a higher level. With a higher question, when they go and they're accustomed to thinking, they will solve the easier ones that they get at the exam.
With no problem.
Don't worry. As you said, you prayed and things worked, and you went back to the drawing board, and that's what we want. So as your colleagues have said, it's not necessarily a MOEY text, but we will definitely check on that one.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. She prayed and she got through. Tisha Harvey, go ahead.
Hello, what's our percentage breakdown? Percentage.
So can you speak up?
You're gonna have to turn
please?
down that thing behind you. There's a sound behind you that is distorting you. So Tisha, walk away from that whatever you're listening, the background.
What are percentages?
I think she's asking about the weighting, the percentages. Is that it, Miss Harvey?
Yes.
Right. So as I shared earlier, because we would have had the students wouldn't have done a particular component at grade 4, the weighting is under review. So we do not know. And the student assessment unit is reviewing the weighting, and that information will be shared. All right. So we don't have that information for you. No.
There is a question from Tara's iPhone.
Yes. Okay.
It says, in the science example given earlier with baking soda, I see where 2 answers were circled.
Yes.
Can some questions, especially pertaining to science, have 2 answers?
So okay, yes, I'm still open. Yeah. So when there were different item types that were shown for the different exams. So normally we would know that MCQs would just be 1 response. When the PEP was designed, there were some item types that could accommodate, they would indicate that, you know, you need to have two answers or something, right? I think they're going back to just 1 response for the grade 6. Don't quote me on that. But if it is that 2 responses are required, then in most cases, the question would indicate, right? All right.
I'm on YouTube. Can you speak to the overall results of the grade 4 assessments? This is from Mrs. T Walks. Can you speak to the overall result of the grade 4 assessment? Is that something can be spoken?
I don't have that information in front of me. I do know that there are some areas of concern, but I don't have the actual overall percentages in front of me right now. All right.
All right. I think this is for Mrs. Jennifer Harris, if she's still on.
Yes.
Are there any recommendations for where to get the psychoeducational assessment done?
There is Michael. Well, Michael takes a little long. There are other agencies like, oh, I'm trying to remember. I know Michael is a popular place, depending on what the child's need is. Where is that person located?
They're not saying it.
You can probably put
it's from Camille Grant. Camille Grant, where are you from?
Assessments are also done at MACAM. There is also contemporary. I don't know the numbers offhand, but contemporary assessment agencies, right? But Michael is the most popular place that most people will go there for assessment.
Can you put it in the chat? Sorry.
Is there one UWI? Because I keep hearing about UWI.
For autism, student
for autism, okay.
Yeah. The child guidance clinic.
And does Evelyn still do assessment?
Yes, only in Clarendon. Well, if you go to her in Clarendon, you'll get her assessment, an assessment done there. There is also in Spanish Town, we do assessment at 3Ds. It's on Monk Street. That's on the way to St. Jago High School. The Jamaica Association for Persons with Learning Disabilities, also in Crossroads, they do assessment there.
And in St. Anne's Way, the St. Anne Michael Care Center also.
There's a Michael Care in St. Anne, yes.
Right, right. Michaela Williams, go ahead. Unmute and go ahead.
Oh yes, give me a second. Let me unmute her. Yes,
okay.
Miss McClarty was showing me the Just Think text. All right, go ahead, Williams. Michaela.
Good night, everyone. I was just asking, I got in late on here. So I don't know if I missed out most of the thing, but what I want to know, my son is in grade 6, son is a slow reader. And I want to know if there is any assistant when he go to do the PEP, is anyone in there to assist him with it, or he's at home now, like how they got holiday now. I was wondering, is there any special book that they need to study for the PEP?
I'll allow Miss Harris to tell you about the special needs accommodation again, and then I'll ask Dr. Francis to tell you about that. Well, to address the last question.
Okay, an assessment is done for a child who has special needs. It's not necessary. The child may be slow, but doesn't have a specific problem that they'll get a reader, writer. The only thing that some children will get if they're slow is extra time, but the assessment must be done at a recognized agency, and then it will be sent to the student assessment unit and then to us. But if this is not done in time, I'm afraid that your child will not be able to get the assessment done. But it's never too late. Even when the child goes to high school, the assessment report can be brought there, and they get the intervention that is needed at that point. So parents really have to move urgently when they notice that their children are having challenges, so that they can get the required support that is needed.
All right, thank you, Miss.
Sorry, I just saw a question about how long.
Right, how long, yeah.
Time has passed for grade 6, especially for the psycho.
Getting some distortion in my room. Can we look at another question? How long before the exam can
yes, she's addressing it.
Report be submitted?
She's addressing it, sir. Yes, go ahead.
Right, I'm saying that time has passed for that. However, if there's an urgent need, we don't turn back parents. If something comes in before the exam, I don't want to say this out loud, but some reports come in the day before, and we try as best as possible, because it is in the interest of the children. So we try to facilitate all reports, but time has really passed, but we really don't turn back assessment reports so we get them.
All right. So parents, it means that you need to act now. All right.
Ms. Harris need to
Now is the
also
time.
address that the assessment must be not more than 2 or 3 years old.
Oh, yes.
Because sometimes they are taking assessment that are older than 2 or 3 years. Normally 2 years. Am I right, Mrs. Harris?
Yes, yes.
But for this year, you accommodate us 3 years. But
we will try
beyond.
to, yes, because right now I'm going through grade 5. I was doing some today and I saw one for 2018. That is old. That's so many years ago, and that child would have changed. A lot of things would have changed from then. So 2 years to current is the appropriate time frame. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Dr. Thompson.
All right. So with respect to the book,
yes. So parent, from our end, the ministry's end, we really do not provide those books because the situations vary. So the school, the onus is on the school to determine the profile of the students, to do the assessment and to use the assessments and to use the requisite resources. And so if a child, for example, is assessed to be grades below the current grade level, then, you know, in a special pull-out program, they will provide resources, or they may ask the parents to assist with providing a text that can help that child to reach the level. But we, you know, we do not definitely, because as I said, there are varying levels. So the ministry would not be able to provide book sets or, you know, for all levels of students. All right.
Right. So there is no one book that you can say, okay, they have to use, you know, like that particular book. All right. Remember, as we just explained, the skills, using the skills, developing the skills, and so on. All right.
There's
Any
a
more?
there's a concern. There's a concern from
Go
Learning
ahead.
with Philip on YouTube, asking why can't the children be assessed at the grade 6 only? Premising it on the last year's students that were in first form did the grade 6 exam alone. So that's a question.
So parents, as you know, because of COVID, then adjustments were made. But the PEP it's called primary exit profile, and it is supposed to be over 3 years. So I'm sure there are some students who may be at a disadvantage with a one-shot thing. So by giving them this assessment over 3 years, you're better able to follow their progress. All right. So that was the decision taken with the new curriculum. All right. So for now, it remains multiple examinations over grades 4 to 6. All right. All right, colleagues. Sir Williams, any more questions?
I'm not seeing any. I'm going on YouTube. I'm looking on any other hands? No.
Just a comment from Charlene McClarty that she knows of a child who was promoted to grade 5 who had a challenge reading.
Right.
So those are school challenges, right? And sometimes a child can be promoted because maybe they were given support in the grade before, they are not quite there yet, and the other class that receives the baton is expected to look at the child's achievement level and to push the child further. All right, so those things happen.
And sometimes, colleagues, is the child's age. So it's not just the performance of the child. So they may put the child there because of age. We have a certain age to leave primary school to go to secondary school. With I know with the special needs, with the reports, with the given with those tests done, we have up to age 14 that a child can enter into the secondary schools. So there are several things that may be playing out why the child is moved or not moved or kept at a class.
All right. Okay.
All right. Chantel Kitson on YouTube is saying, how can we get the findings for the grade 4 assessment? I'm a bit concerned. The grades need to be reviewed. Too many students miss proficiency by 1 point. And while you're going to answer that, whoever, what is off jam says, what is the percentage average for highly proficient and proficiency?
So as I indicated, I don't have that information in front of me. I know there are some areas where the performance, what's the word now, Dr. Francis? The performance wasn't as good as in former years, all right? But I don't know if the ministry had, I'm sure they had done some formal release or at least some summary of the exam results, all right? But I don't have that information in front of me at this point. However, please remember that the grade 4, whatever is done, that exam is really to be used by the school to now see the areas that are to be targeted. I know for assessment, generally with examination assessment, they have a particular mark scheme. So the questions, the answers should follow a particular scheme. They must have that, some important points that would be deemed to sufficient enough to answer the question. So it may just be that for that particular question, right, they fell below what was required. And so some of them ended up with 1 mark below mastery or proficiency or something, all right? So the exams follow a mark scheme. Okay, so you may have, yes, go ahead.
Also, what we need to know is that the exam's percentage is not static. It may differ from year to year based on the performance of the students.
That's what Dr. Francine was saying.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to get that right, that it's not static. It's not that every year your child must get this percentage in order to go to this school. or in order to be proficient or not proficient. The performance of the cohort will determine what percentage cutoff, the percentage cutoff for each category.
That's what you call the cut score or something like
Yeah.
that.
We won't get into that. We won't get into that.
But that is how it is.
Yes, all right. Colleagues, I'll show again the screen with the SAU's contact information. All right, so if you want to contact them, somebody was asking in the chat about changing the schools that they would have indicated, the schools that they would have indicated preference for. I can go down to that. So just contact the assessment unit, send an email. So write down this email address and you can try to get that information adjusted or changed, all right? Okay. All right. Thank you, colleagues, for joining. Mr. Williams.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks. I think it was a fulsome presentation by all our presenters, and I'm sure parents
by the way,
are far better.
Please,
go ahead.
Sir, just remind them I put a link for evaluation in the chat.
Yes, I was about to speak to that.
Right, go ahead.
So the fact that you've come on, and I'm really happy that you're with us. We're asking you just to look, go back to that link, please, so a person can just go on the link and evaluate the session. Would want you to do so
in the chat.
All right, and remember, you can go on the Jamaica Teaching Council YouTube page, and you can go over this entire presentation as many times as you want to. You'll see the presentations that are done by the various presenters on it, and the greetings, the pep talk, which was a great pep talk by Mrs. Bailey Folks. Dr. McLean Francis spoke to language arts. We have Miss Jennifer Harris speaking to, she spoke to the whole matter of special needs. So your questions can be answered again. Looking back, tell others, mathematics, Miss Sherilla Powell from the Amphitry Primary, and Dr. Taylor Campbell on science. And then we wrap it up and look at those important dates as relates to exam administration and some further tips. So you got it all. You go back now on the chat and you click on that link and you do the evaluation. We're asking you to do so because we want to know that we would have done well as relates to you coming on and participating. We thank you all for how interactive the session was. Want to again thank all our presenters. We thank all the parents who are on, and even those who are going to be viewing on YouTube, watching again on YouTube, or inviting persons to watch on YouTube. That's the Jamaica Teaching Council YouTube page. We're happy that you would have joined, and we know you're going to be better off moving forward because we're going to be ready for the curriculum-based test and the performance task test for PEP. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Francine Taylor.
Thank you, sir.
Campbell.
Thank you, colleague.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Pleasure.
Yes, the voice looks like it can, go places.
I was wondering if it was a preaching voice.
That's definitely not a preaching voice. That's a media voice.
Wow.
You guys have a wonderful night.
Lovely, sir. Thank you so much for your time and efforts. Okay. All right. Blessings, everyone.
Bless you.
All right.
Thank you to the JTC. I must say that to the team there at JTC and our host, Mr.
Leslie.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right. Blessings all. Okay, colleagues, goodbye. Remember to evaluate and so on. All right, great. I'm going to close. Sir?
Bye, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye. Okay, great. Bye.